advance our goals of diversifying markets and opening cooperation with old friends. In the United Kingdom, I discussed the idea of a new alliance of the United Kingdom, New Zealand, and Australia with Canada to line up our rules so that we can allow the free flow of services, capital, people, and products. This is by eliminating red tape and other unnecessary obstacles and ensuring the free flow of affordable goods, but also allowing us to credential more doctors and nurses and improve life while we diversify our partnerships abroad. In Germany, I met with the foreign minister, the former chancellor, the trade minister, and representatives of over 100,000 German businesses who all said they want more Canadian energy. I went, for example, to Wilhelmshaven, which is the place that they built an incredible LNG plant. They permitted it in 60 days, and they completed the construction in just over 130 days for a total of 200 days. This is really an incredible achievement. The Russians invaded Ukraine in February of 2022. By May, the permits had been granted, and before Christmas, the project was completely done on December 23rd. Shipments began in January of the subsequent year. To put that into perspective, that's 200 days to go from concept to completion. Mark Carney has been Prime Minister twice that time, and he hasn't even permitted a single new pipeline. His Major Projects Office, despite having unprecedented powers, has not permitted a project of any kind in all of the time he's been in office. Now, none of the gas that the Germans are bringing in comes from Canada. All of it comes from the United States, and that is because in the last decade, the Americans have built 8 LNG export terminals. We've built 1 that was permitted by Prime Minister Stephen Harper, and we have none on the East Coast. In other words, we can't even reach Europe with our gas, despite the fact that we have more than the Americans, that it's cheaper to liquefy here due to our cold weather, and it takes half the shipping time to go from the East Coast of Canada to Germany than it takes from the U.S. Gulf Coast. Shorter shipping, less energy requirement, more abundant resources, and yet we're delivering 0 under this Liberal government, while the Americans are delivering 95% of German natural gas needs. That means we cannot replace any Russian gas to our European allies. Instead, the Liberals have signed a 2022 MOU to ship boatloads of hydrogen over to Germany. You all remember that MOU? We haven't shipped a single tablespoon of hydrogen, even though the delivery date was supposed to be 2025, which proves that once again, these MOUs, which get great fanfare and wonderful media coverage, are meaningless PR stunts, stagecraft, not statecraft. Speaking of theater, the Prime Minister has taken 4 different positions on the war in the Middle East in 4 days. He was for the attack. Then he said he regretted his support for the attack. Then he said his support for the attack was illegal. Then he said he was open to contributing Canadian troops to the war. And then he said his party has said one thing to one group and another thing to other groups. All they are doing is trying to pander in all directions while dividing our country and confusing our allies. We as Conservatives have been clear. We support the removal of the theocratic terrorist regime in Iran, which has killed Canadian citizens, including shooting down a civilian aircraft that contained well over 100 Canadians, and terrorized Persian and Jewish communities in our country. The war in the Middle East has caused an energy scramble. Our allies are desperate for energy that does not come from the Middle East or Russia. High oil and gas prices present an enormous opportunity for Canada, which has the 4th biggest supply of oil in the world and enough natural gas to single-handedly power the entire globe for 200 years. But none of it goes to Europe because Liberal laws make it impossible to get pipelines and plants built to ship it there. Just last week, Liberal laws forced one of our biggest producers, CNRL, to cancel a massive energy investment. In the middle of a massive price spike for oil, our industry is not expanding, it is retreating, because Liberal laws are pushing it away. CNRL specifically cited the Liberal industrial carbon tax and red tape as the reason. That is why I'm calling for, and Conservatives are calling for, an emergency energy supply plan that would unblock our resources and get them overseas. It would repeal C-69 to rapidly approve permits in 6 months rather than 18 years. It would legalize shipping oil off the northwest coast of BC. It would scrap the industrial carbon tax that is raising food prices and killing jobs. All of this would boost our dollar so that food and energy are more affordable here at home. I'll work with the Prime Minister to get these things done. He can take credit for it. As I like to say, he can steal my ideas so that we can make life affordable, safe, and strong here at home. And we get it. No Prime Minister can control President Trump, nor the events in the Middle East. We have to stoically focus on what we can control here at home. To the Prime Minister's credit, he has given some good speeches, made grand announcements, and done a lot of ceremonial signing events. But these are all just illusions. He promised the fastest growing economy in the G7. He's delivered the only shrinking economy in the G7. He promised affordable groceries. Food prices are now rising fastest in the G7, twice as fast as when he took office. He promised to double home building. His own housing agency says it's going to go down by 15%. He promised to spend less, yet outside of COVID, the deficit is the biggest in history and government spending is the biggest share of GDP in 30 years. Indeed, the deficit has doubled and 2/3 of the new spending is on day-to-day operations, not capital investments, as he promised. Despite Conservatives rushing through the major projects law in just 5 days last June, he has yet to use that law to approve a single project. He set up a new office for special projects. It has approved 0 projects. He has not approved a pipeline nor removed a single Trudeau-era anti-development law. And in the middle of an energy and affordability crisis, the Prime Minister is raising the carbon tax on energy, steel, concrete, aluminum, and fertilizer. On veut que notre pays soit abordable chez nous, sécuritaire chez nous et maître chez nous. M. Carney avait promis la meilleure économie du G7. Mais depuis qu'il est arrivé, on est maintenant la seule économie qui est en déclin dans tout le G7. Il avait promis un panier d'épicerie plus abordable, mais ça augmente 2 fois plus rapidement et le plus rapidement dans le G7. Il avait promis de doubler la construction de logements, mais sa propre agence de logement dit que la construction va tomber de 15%. Il avait promis de dépenser moins, mais il a doublé le déficit. On a maintenant le plus grand, à part de COVID, on a le plus grand déficit dans le G7, le plus grand déficit dans notre histoire et les dépenses les plus élevées en proportion de notre économie depuis 30 ans. En juin, juste après les élections, les conservateurs ont rapidement adopté la loi C5 pour accélérer les projets. Aucun projet n'est approuvé, aucun nouveau pipeline n'est approuvé et il n'a pas retiré une seule loi anti-développement mise en place par Justin Trudeau. Pire encore, le Premier ministre est en train d'augmenter la taxe carbone industrielle sur l'énergie, l'acier et l'équipement agricole. Canada is more expensive, dangerous, and dependent than it was a year ago when Mark Carney took office. There have always been wars in the Middle East, but those wars have never spilled onto our streets. And so we have to focus on what we can control. After 10 years of liberal immigration, liberal catch-and-release laws, liberal incompetence, we are seeing the violence abroad spill into our streets, and terrorism is being normalized. Synagogues have been shot. The RCMP is now investigating the homicide of an Iranian dissident in Canada. There are 700 IRGC terrorists on our streets after 10 years of Liberal government and a year of Mark Carney. Conservatives will be proposing plans to deport these terrorists, to kick them out of the country, to identify and expel them and keep our people safe. We will also be proposing new measures on immigration and border control to keep Islamic Republic terrorists out of this country. Aussi, le coût de la vie le coût de la vie continue d'augmenter et notre pays est de plus en plus dangereux après un an de M. Carney. Oui, il y a toujours eu des guerres en Moyen-Orient, mais ces problèmes n'affectaient pas la vie ici au Canada avant les libéraux. Mais après 10 ans des libéraux, ils ont brisé notre système d'immigration et de justice. Les synagogues sont maintenant visées par des tirs et le GRC fait maintenant une enquête sur un meurtre d'un Canadien dissident iranien sur nos rues. Après 10 ans des libéraux, il y a maintenant 700 terroristes du corps des gardiens de la révolution islamique ici au Canada. Les conservateurs vont proposer un plan pour les expulser et pour renforcer nos frontières et les garder dehors. We are here to work collaboratively and quickly with the Prime Minister and the government to turn rhetoric into results, to move from illusions to reality. Our mission is a country that is affordable at home, safe at home, and strong at home. We want a country where our streets are safe, where work is rewarded, home ownership is in reach, and where you can fill your grocery cart without emptying your bank account. We want our country to be strong at home, to be unbreakable abroad. On veut un pays qui est abordable chez nous, sécuritaire chez nous et fort chez nous. Merci beaucoup.
M. Poilievre, est-ce que de votre côté, comment vous qualifiez les tirs, les frappes israélo-américaines? Est-ce qu'elles sont légales et comment considérez-vous l'implication du Canada? Est-ce qu'on doit y participer aux côtés des Américains?
Merci beaucoup. Vous m'avez posé deux questions. Évidemment, c'était un régime illégal, un régime qui avait tué à peu près 150 Canadiens avec un missile qui a frappé un avion passager. C'est un régime qui attaque nos communautés perses et juives ici au Canada, qui a 700 agents ici au Canada. C'est dans notre intérêt que ce régime soit remplacé et nous supportons la démocratie en Iran. En même temps, nous voulons nous concentrer sur ce que nous pouvons contrôler chez nous, c'est-à-dire des frontières plus fortes, des taxes plus bas sur le coût de l'énergie et la libération de nos ressources naturelles afin de pouvoir fournir de l'énergie à nos alliés et des chèques de paie pour nos propres citoyens. La deuxième question, c'est sur la participation du Canada. À ce que je sache, il n'y a pas une proposition spécifique. Si le Premier ministre a reçu des propositions, il devrait nous informer. On peut juger ainsi. Merci.
Sur le débat d'urgence. Sur le débat.
In English, please.
Oh, yes, okay. So the two questions were in English, do we support the original strike to remove the regime? The second was, what about Canadian involvement? So this is an illegal regime that killed over 150 Canadian citizens firing a missile at a passenger plane. They have unleashed at least 700 of their agents on our streets to provoke violence against Canada's Persian and Jewish communities. This is a terrorist regime. They have been the single biggest state sponsor of terrorism in the world. Conservatives support replacing that terrorist regime with a democratically elected and peaceful regime. As for Canada's role in it, we're not aware of any specific requests that the Prime Minister has received. If he has, we'd encourage him to share that information with all Canadians so we can have a debate about what we should do. But in the meantime, we have to focus on here at home. Here at home, this war should not be used as an excuse for higher food and gas prices. We have the energy here at home. We have the food here at home to make life affordable. Here at home, we have the resources to fuel our friends and power paychecks. So let us do that and focus on what we can control.
Sur le débat d'urgence cet après-midi, est-ce que vous allez participer d'abord et que dites-vous du fait que M. Carney n'a pas l'intention de participer, justement par rapport au fait qu'il a changé beaucoup de positions dans les derniers jours sur cet enjeu?
Mais M. Carney a eu 4 positions sur la guerre en Iran en 4 jours. Il se contredit sans arrêt. Personne ne connaît sa position. Même ses propres députés ont été cités dans le journal disant « What the hell ?» parlant de lui. Et maintenant, il se cache. En même temps, il a affaibli notre pays avec des taxes élevées et des lois anti-développement qui nous empêchent de fournir l'énergie dont le monde a besoin en pleine guerre aujourd'hui. Donc, il devrait arrêter de se cacher et se prononcer à la Chambre, chez nous, sa position et comment il va protéger le Canada. Oui, moi, je vais y participer. Merci beaucoup.
You said explicitly it's in our interest that the regime is replaced. Will you say explicitly whether you support what the U.S. and Israel have been doing and whether you believe that any of it is in accordance with international law?
Well, we already said that. We support the action to overturn the regime because this is a regime that has killed Canadians. They killed over 100 Canadians. They have 700 agents on Canadian streets terrorizing our Persian and Jewish communities, carrying out terrorist attacks against our people. This is the biggest state sponsor of terror in the world. That is why we have not equivocated. We also need to focus on what we control at home, which is here at home, to secure our borders against these terrorists, to bring down energy costs and food prices for our people. And that's what we as Conservatives are going to do here at home.
On the parliamentary budget officer, you put out a letter last week about the appointment process. This morning we reported it's going to be Annette Ryan, who's from FinTrack. We're expecting the formal announcement later today. What is your response to that? The House will ultimately have to approve this.
Look, Mark Carney is trying to muzzle the Parliamentary Budget Office. We had a highly qualified Parliamentary Budget Officer who is calling out Mr. Carney for doubling the deficit, for breaking his promise to lower the debt-to-GDP ratio, for cooking the books, and for breaking his home-building promises. And then all of a sudden, after only months on the job, the Prime Minister throws him out. We believe that the existing interim Parliamentary Budget Officer should have been made permanent because he was doing the job, and it sends a chilling message when the Prime Minister effectively fires someone for telling the truth about his out-of-control spending, his book cooking, his deficits, and his broken housing promises. Now he's going to benefit from silencing other people from speaking out. We'll look at the new nominee's record, and once we have, we'll vote accordingly.
The Prime Minister will get a majority from these 3 by-elections?
In the by-elections, we will be running candidates on the platform of making Canada affordable at home and stronger at home. We think that the #1 issue in all 3 of these communities is that people can't afford to eat after the Prime Minister doubled food inflation. He gave us the worst food inflation in the G7 and the only shrinking economy in that group. Those will be the issues that we will be passing on the doorstep.
Ces partiels-là pourraient donner une majorité au gouvernement. C'est quoi votre pitch aux électeurs, entre autres, de Terrebonne, pour que le gouvernement demeure minoritaire?
Si M. Carney gagne une majorité, il va augmenter le coût d'épicerie encore pire. Il va continuer de gonfler le déficit et libérer les criminels dans nos rues. Et il ne va jamais réparer le système d'immigration libérale qui a causé de chaos. Si vous voulez être abordable chez nous, sécuritaire chez nous et maître chez nous, il faut voter pour des conservateurs.
M. Poilievre, vous avez fait voter une motion pour restreindre les soins de santé aux demandeurs d'asile. Tous les députés des autres partis étaient présents et ont voté, mais il en manquait 7 de votre côté, dont certains ont gagné leur siège par une très faible majorité. Comment expliquez-vous le fait qu'ils n'ont pas voté?
Moi, je crois que les faux demandeurs d'asile ne devraient pas recevoir des bénéfices qui ne sont pas disponibles aux Canadiens qui paient des taxes. Je trouve ça aberrant que le gouvernement libéral donne des bénéfices et des services de luxe aux faux demandeurs d'asile qui n'existent même pas pour des aînés canadiens. Moi, je crois qu'on devrait couper ça pour mettre l'argent dans nos hôpitaux et réduire les listes d'attente.
Europe, I believe you previously said that you believe in an approach of having one prime minister at a time, I believe in the context of why you didn't go to Washington. Can you then clarify why exactly you went to Europe?
Well, I didn't go as prime minister. I went there to promote our agenda of selling Canadian energy and integrating our trade with like-minded allies, which is totally legitimate thing to do. We need to expand our list of markets. For example, in the United Kingdom, they want to be able to trade more freely with us, but there are still a lot of bureaucratic non-tariff obstacles that I propose that we eliminate by signing on to an alliance of CANZUK nations, New Zealand, Australia, the UK, and Canada. In Germany, I pushed for selling Canadian natural gas to the Germans. These are the objectives of the Canadian government. So I'm sure that the Prime Minister was very happy to see me doing that work. Not at this particular trip, but I've discussed with him in the past the need for us all to work together to promote, to diversify our markets, to make us stronger at home and unbreakable abroad. And I did so in a very nonpartisan and positive way, and was very well received, by the way.
Mr. Poilievre,
Yes, sir.
Obviously, gas prices we're seeing are already going up. Food prices are already going up. What would you have the government do in the very short term to address those price increases in the meantime?
Well, first of all, the Prime Minister could get rid of his newly renamed carbon tax, the so-called clean fuel standard, which he estimates adds 7 cents a litre to gas. Why not get rid of that tax, lower the gas price a little bit? Secondly, we used to be sheltered from sudden rises in global oil prices because our dollar would go up at the same time, meaning that our purchasing power would match the more expensive WTI oil price. That's not happening anymore. Why? Because we're not exporting enough of our oil. We have to unblock our oil and gas, increase our exports to have a stronger dollar that buys more affordable food and fuel.
Short term, though. That first bit isn't necessarily short term, though.
Well, the first bit is you're right. I mean, it's like when do you start planning for the future? Yesterday. We should have done, if we had done all of the things I'm describing back in 2022 when I proposed it all, we would be in a much better position today. But here we are after 11 years of Liberals, and all of this is getting much worse. So I would say get rid of all the other fuel taxes that Mr. Carney and the Liberals are imposing, unblock our resources so that we can fuel our friends abroad and power paychecks at home. Good. Thank you very much.